again, everyone. This is Dr. Laurel Cook, Associate Professor of Marketing at West Virginia University. This lecture marks the last lecture in our Consumer Behavior course and covers Chapter 16, Alternative Evaluation and Selection, Chapter 17, Outlet Selection, and ending with Chapter 18, Post-Purchase Processes, Satisfaction, and Commitment. This lecture is customized based on the class responses to the Connect assignments, and as usual includes some brand new information about consumer behavior. As a result, some material in this lecture is not included in your text. Let's get started. Let's begin with a question. What are the two primary conflicts that happen when consumers have to make really important decisions? In other words, there's goal conflict. Well, most consumers want to make the best decision, a decision that's in their best interest. But consumers also want to have the most options. The image on the screen shows a variety of food, consumer packaged products. You see a lot of brands that really have just a few parent companies. What do you think happens when a consumer is faced with such a large variance of brands and choices? If you guessed choice paralysis, you would be right. The outcome for a consumer might be the choice to make no decision. This outcome is bad for marketers and for the consumers. The image on your screen shows an example of the iconic Apple ads featuring Mac versus Apple, which began in 2006, and the entire campaign was named Adweek's Campaign of the Decade. This campaign included 66 ads. Indeed, Apple brought back this particular PC actor this year to help announce the new hardware featured in the MacBook Pro and the MacBook Air. These ads illustrate one brand's attempt to position their brands cleverly above all other alternatives.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
Hello, I'm a PC.
We have a lot in common these days.
We both run Microsoft Office. We share files. It's great. We just get along.
PC. Oh. Okay.
Hi, I'm a PC.
Okay, we're past that. We moved beyond that.
Yeah, I had to restart there. You know how it is.
No, actually, I don't.
Oh, what? Macs don't have to...
We had him, then we lost him. I'm gonna go get IT. Keep an eye on him.
So is it possible to use this approach if you're not a brand? Well, the example I'm about to share with you is actually from a consumer who is selling his used 1996 Honda Accord for the mere price of $499. As you watch the ad, consider the appeals he uses.
You're different. You do things your way. That's what makes you one of a kind. You don't need things. You're happy with who you are. You don't care about money. You have everything you've ever wanted. You don't do it for appearances. You do it because it works. And this is not a card. This is you. It's a lifestyle, a choice, your choice. Introducing a used 1996 Honda Accord, a car for people who have life figured out and just need a way to get somewhere. Luxury is a state of mind.
When it comes to understanding how consumers evaluate alternatives and make their final selection, many marketers for years thought that consumers made their choices rationally. The idea is they're making their consumer based on their best interest. The example I'm going to share with you on the screen is actually based from a letter from Benjamin Franklin to his friend back in 1772. You can see an example, some of the highlights of the letter on your screen. You can see the effort that Benjamin Franklin puts into making his choices. He has a pro and con list. He estimates the respective weights. He thinks that he can use this process to make or help him judge better. And marketers do see a lot of reason behind this. Indeed, many consumers do continue to this day make choices in a very similar way. As you see in the letter, motives in this case are what marketers would describe as evaluative criteria. The pro and con judgments made with respect to each motive are associated with a particular stimulus. Remember, a stimulus can be an ad or a product, and Franklin's discussion of respective weight is analogous to a marketer's use of the relative importance of different evaluative criteria. In the end, Franklin's decision rule is analogous to the compensatory decision rule discussed in the brand selection of your textbook. The rational choice theory still has some use for marketers. Indeed, it's understandable under what conditions a consumer might go to such lengths and effort to make a decision. And the general premise of the rational choice theory is, of course, that consumers are going to make choices based on their best interests. They're going to be rational about their decision making and not emotional. In other words, consumers always make optimal decisions. This particular theory, though, is heavily criticized because we realize that, of course, this simply isn't true. Consumers do not always make optimal decisions. And there are many reasons why rational choice simply doesn't work. Number one is the biggest assumption, where consumers seek one optimal or perfect solution to a problem and choose on that basis. The reality is consumers have all sorts of meta goals. Maybe it's not the cost. Maybe it's not the overall quality. The second is of particular interest to me and has a lot of relevance in a lot of the nutrition-based research I conduct. And that assumption says consumers have the skill and the motivation to find that perfect or optimal solution. And the reality is consumers often lack not just the skill in many cases, but the motivation to do so. And again, this ties back into my research about the Nutrition Facts Panel. So what was invented to help consumers in this case? You see the image that just popped up that shows you a star evaluation and maybe a number of calories a product might have. This sort of label, which you see on the front of food product packaging, is helpful to guide consumers in making a more healthful product choice. The third assumption that suggests why rational choice theory doesn't work is that the optimal solution does not change as a function of situational factors, for example, time or task definition, or some sort of competitive context. And the reality is, context effects are very common. Let me give you some new information based on recent marketing and consumer research. Let me pose a question and ask you, if you have two different sales for the same product, one is for a can of soup sold at $3 each. The second is a sale at a different time where there's a limit of 12. Which particular sale, number one or number two, is more likely to get consumers to buy more cans of soup? Which sale, the $3 each or the limit of 12, would be more effective? Well, the answer is the limit of 12. And the reason is because an anchoring heuristic is being used in both cases. In the first case, where a can of soup is being sold for $3 each, a shopper may see the sale sign and anchor on however many of cans they came in to buy, maybe 3, maybe 4, and they'll adjust upward when they see the cans on sale. On average, though, they actually only buy 3.3 cans using this particular sale. In the second condition, with a limit of 12, shoppers are again using an anchoring heuristic, but now they're anchoring on the number 12. In this particular sales promotion condition, shoppers buy 7 cans on average. This is because when consumers see a limit of 12, they anchor downward. Our next discussion is about the differences in our comparison of things that bring us joy versus things that cause us pain. Imagine that I gave you the following choice. Option A is, I'll give you $15 per month for a period of 10 months. Or option B is, I'll give you $100 all at once. What do you think you would choose, and what do you think most people would choose? You're probably guessing that option A is the more lucrative option in the long run, but most people, of course, will choose the quick buck. just because the joy of receiving money is much greater when it's given to you all at once, rather than spread out in small sums over a long time. Again, this is a condition that brings us joy. Now imagine the tables were turned. If I said you could give me option A, which is $100 now, or option B, you could pay that $100 over a period of 10 months with a 10% interest rate, what option do you think you would choose in that case? Of course, it may depend on the amount of money you currently have at your disposal, but in this condition, more people are likely to go for the separate payment installment options. So the lesson we've learned here is for something joyful, we would rather experience it all at once. For something painful, like a payment, we'd rather break that down into smaller pieces. Another ad I would like to showcase illustrates how marketing can be useful well beyond just the alternative evaluation and selection for a single product or service. Indeed, it can be used for pro-social movements. For example, there was a recent sustainable oil palm products movement. As a result of this ad campaign, there was a label produced to help consumers identify products that adhered to this movement's standards.
There's orangutan in my bedroom and I don't know what to do. She plays with all my teddies and keeps borrowing my shoe. She destroys all of my houseplants and she keeps on shouting, ooh. She throws away my chocolate and she howls at my shampoo. There's a orangutan in my bedroom and I don't want her to stay. So I told the naughty orangutan that she had to go away. Orangutan in my bedroom, just before you go, why were you in my bedroom? I really want to know. There's a human in my forest and I don't know what to do. He destroyed all of our trees for your food and your shampoo. There's a human in my forest and I don't know what to do. He took away my mother and I'm scared he'll take me too. There are humans in my forest and I don't know what to do. They're burning it for palm oil. So I thought I'd stay with you. Orangutan in my bedroom, now I do know what to do. I'll fight to save your home and I'll stop you feeling blue. I'll share your story far and wide so others can fight too. Orangutan in my bedroom, I swear it on the stars. The future's not yet written, but I'll make sure it is ours.
Here you can see the RSPO logo that stands for the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, and it helps consumers identify which products adhere to these standards. Next, we bring our discussion to the types of choice processes. And there are three I'd like you to pay careful attention to. The first is effective. By now you should recognize that the word effect or effective is going to have some relationship to or be interchanged with emotion. In other words, a choice of this type asks the question, how does it make the consumer feel? The second is an attitude-based choice. What you need to realize in this condition is most consumer choices fall under this particular type of choice process. Indeed, as our motivation to make a choice decreases, these types of choices, attitude-based choices, become increasingly more common. Most people tend to collect very little information about a product or service they're considering. In other words, we do very little homework when it comes to making our choices. An attitude-based choice involves the use of our general attitudes, summary impressions, intuitions, or heuristics come to play. The last type of choice process is an attribute-based choice. And this is much more effortful and involves a comparison of product attributes on a case-by-case basis. This choice requires the knowledge of specific attributes at the time the choice is being made, and it involves attribute-by-attribute comparisons across brands. To illustrate these three different choice processes, we'll begin with an affective-based choice. Emotionally laden or affective-based choices are generally more holistic in nature. In other words, the brand isn't decomposed. A decision is based on how you feel, for example. And the brand shown on the screen does a really great job of supplying consumers with experiential information. For example, product demonstrations. Here, you usually have a difference between consumatory and instrumental motives. Affective-based choices generally tend to have more consumatory motives, which are intrinsically rewarding. Instrumental motives, on the other hand, are designed to achieve a second goal. Number 2, attitude-based choices use general attitudes, summary impressions, intuition, or heuristics, and again, are more likely under pressure. For example, situational influences, like a time constraint. Here, you have more nominal and limited decisions being made. On the screen, I'm showing you some retro-designed Burger King ads. The reason why I want to show these ads is because I think the brand in this particular case is doing a really good job of leveraging attitude-based choices generally made for their brand. Greater purchase involvement, more information, and lower time pressure all contribute to attribute-based choices and fewer attitude-based choices. In the case of Burger King, purchase involvement is, as you might imagine, usually lower. So these retro ads utilize a humor appeal to leave a favorable overall impression on the consumer. These ads illustrate marketers' utility of attitude-based choices. Again, consumers are less likely to have an attribute-based choice. They're not comparing side by side, taste, cost, etc. in this context. The last type of choice process is attribute-based choices. Attribute-based choices require the knowledge of, again, specific attributes at the time that a choice is being made. And it involves that attribute by attribute comparison across brands. As you might imagine, this is more effortful and time-consuming. When attribute-based decisions are made, they tend to be more optimal. Why is that? Well, it usually involves higher purchase involvement and may involve easily accessible brand attribute information. And situational factors such as lower time pressure increase the likelihood of this type of choice. That's why your text outlines the 5 decision rules consumers use when attribute-based choices are more likely. This year, of course, attribute-based choices are usually being made with Apple iPhone 12 versus other similar products. Next is our discussion on Chapter 17, Outlet Selection and Purchase. Once again, you'll get a glimpse of some brand new marketing research. When we use the term retail outlet, it's important for you to understand that this refers to any source of products or services for consumers. In other words, not just a bricks and mortar location. Retailing has moved well beyond traditional physical stores to include the wealth of resources online, plus other channels. For example, interactive TV ads and mobile shopping apps. What do you think drives these changes in retailing? We have evolutions in retailing. Of course, it's changed, but what is that primary driver? The answer here is technology. Retailing has changed as technology changes. What are some examples that you can think of? The 2 examples on your screen are also outlined in your chapter. For example, the first one is the My Best Fit size matching station, currently available in a variety of Bloomingdale's locations. The second is called a Magic Mirror and uses RFID, or radio frequency identification, to help consumers during shopping. For example, making suggestions or offering accessories. What are some other retailing-related evolutions that are a function of technology? Specifically, how do you think technology can be used to enhance the retail experience in something as common as a music video, like the image shown on your screen? The idea here is that someone can watch their favorite music video, click on a shirt, and then be taken to a Buy Now page. This technology is a lot more common. You may have seen some recent September Instagram updates. Instagram is now testing 3 versions of their home screen that add shortcuts for the Reels and the Shop tabs. Instagram says that these changes reflect shifts in what they're seeing from consumers, both in how they use the app and how they push culture forward on Instagram. In other words, the rise of creators the explosion of video, and the acceleration of online shopping. Over the next few weeks, all eligible U.S. businesses and creator accounts with Instagram shops will also have access to Instagram checkout and live shopping. Imagine the implications for brands, both big and small. In a traditional retail shopping experience, students can easily understand the importance of emotions. But what about online? How does online shopping deal with the lack of a social element? In-store retailing allows for the social element, and that's a major shopping motivation. This motive is lacking in many online shopping sites. To deal with this, some online retailers are creating websites that incorporate a social shopping experience. And I'll show you an example. Caboodle is one example that combines online shopping with social networking to allow consumers to shop online with their friends. Also, online retailers, including Lands' End, are increasingly adding video and text chat with a sales associate. There are also other social dimensions, like online assistants, even those that look more human-like. Such assistants lead to this perception by consumers that the website is more social, and that connection creates more positive emotions and also increases purchase intentions. Sometimes consumers prefer to shop local or to shop small. This site partners with local organizations and government entities that are interested in helping their local businesses succeed in this new digital era of commerce. This evolution in retailing, however, is limited. This specific example only currently operates in 9 states and with 28 different community site partners. But it's not alone. Shopify also announced this year the launch of Shop, a first-of-its-kind shopping app. The app is designed to help consumers through their shopping journey, from discovering new products, placing orders with their favorite brands, tracking packages, all in one place. Interestingly, Shop also includes a local shopping feature to easily find and buy from neighborhood favorites, as well as viewing other offerings like flexible pickup or delivery options. Retailing has shifted from a purely bricks and mortar perspective to a clicks and bricks perspective. What do you think this expression clicks and bricks implies for a firm? The answer, of course, is selling both in physical retail spaces and online. In the current year, you may ask yourself, well, why don't we just sell everything online? As a marketing student, I want to bring your attention to several barriers for consumers to online shopping. And there are 3 I'd like you to remember. The first is the lack of touch. The second includes privacy concerns. For example, there's still many consumers who are very uncomfortable giving out banking or credit card information over the web. And the last barrier for consumers to shop online include shipping costs. Think about where M&Ms are currently sold. You may be able to suggest many M&Ms are sold in most grocery stores, of course. There are also physical M&M stores, and consumers can buy the products online. But there are also some counterintuitive places that these products are sold. For example, they're sold in a Home Depot or an auto body shop. And I do want you to remember the direct-to-consumer places. What then are potential negative consequences for M&Ms or any brand to sell direct-to-consumer when traditional channels have also included retailers like Walmart and grocery stores? The direct-to-consumer channel becomes a competing channel. Other retailers may be upset with this strategy. M&M's in this case has the solution. They only sell items through the direct-to-consumer channel that are not available through traditional retailers. Based on this illustration, you can see how the M&M's brand has utilized a multi-channel strategy. While store-based retailing continues to dominate in terms of overall sales, online and mobile retailing, as well as other forms of in-home retailing, including catalogs, are increasingly important retail outlets to shoppers. The multi-channel strategy, or a firm-based strategy, involves using a variety of channels, for example, both online and offline, to reach customers. But consumers may use an omni-channel strategy, which is consumer-based. Consumers who shop or browse use more than one channel at the same time. For example, imagine buying a book at Barnes & Noble. You pick up the book and you look at the price. Consumers in this case usually don't immediately buy the book. They'll pull out their phone and check the price on Amazon, for example. This is a good illustration of an omni-channel strategy. Again, if they use multiple channels at the same time, it's an omni-channel strategy. If they go online and then go to a store to purchase, that is a multi-channel strategy. The key distinction here is the difference between the same time or at two different times. How do you imagine, then, retailers drive traffic back into their stores? One of my favorite examples is the Build-A-Bear store, which emphasizes experiences. Experiences right now are something that can't necessarily be garnered as easily online. There are also parts about us as consumers that affect our selection of a retail outlet. Two primary characteristics that I hope you will remember include perceived risk and shopping orientation. These two characteristics are important determinants in outlet choice. Marketing research has helped us uncover these common shopping orientation segments. Next, your text discusses a really good summary between in-store and online influences on brand and product choice. When a consumer is in a retail outlet, they can purchase a brand or product in ways that differ from their plans before entering. These sorts of purchases are commonly referred to by marketers as unplanned purchases. Most of these decisions are the result of additional information processing that's usually induced or created by in-store or online stimuli. However, some impulse purchases are made with little or no deliberation in response to the sudden, powerful urge to buy or consume a product. How many of us have gone to Target with the intention of buying one or two things, and we walk out spending $100 or more, most of which would be categorized as an unplanned purchase? Impulse purchases are often a function of one very important factor, and that's low involvement learning. This is made because of habits, etc. Remember these concepts covered from Chapter 9. Most people actually make decisions about which products they're going to purchase after they enter the store, in fact. This sort of information is a marketer's dream and offers huge implications for us. As you can imagine, a lot of research is done on this topic. In the U.S., it's been discovered that as much as 70% of purchase decisions are in-store, in other words, unplanned. Is this the case across the world? No. Research in Germany suggests that that percent is only as much as 38%. There is, however, brand new information uncovered that's not yet available in your text. This new information comes to us from researchers published in Marketing Science. The new research in this particular journal says out-of-store factors can also influence purchases and be leveraged by retailers as well. They suggest that the shopping goal plays a big role here, and they categorize shopping goal as either concrete, for example, you need to buy a particular item, or abstract. For example, you need to take care of weekly needs. The researchers found that as shoppers' overall goals become more abstract, they make more unplanned purchases. Walmart's Save Money, Live Better campaign, which focuses on abstract shopping benefits, are likely to generate increased unplanned spending. In this research, when shoppers' goals were at their most abstract, how much do you think unplanned purchases increased? The research suggests that unplanned purchases increased by as much as 60%. Now we get to discuss what happens after a purchase is made. In other words, Chapter 18, Post-Purchase Processes, Customer Satisfaction, and Customer Commitment. The act of making a purchase is followed by a number of processes. These include how the product or service is used and what we think of them. Evaluation can include satisfaction, and your chapter does a really great job of talking about this. But even better is the factor of delight. And this is a factor or outcome the text doesn't discuss. When consumers feel delight, more so than mere satisfaction, their repurchase likelihood, positive word of mouth, and loyalty all increase significantly. Of course, there are some brands who will settle for consumers who feel merely satisfied. Consumers' evaluation can also lead to dissatisfaction, which of course should be a marketer's concern. Dissatisfaction is sometimes associated with complaining behavior, as well as erosion of loyalty, brand switching, and negative word of mouth. As we consider consumer evaluation, I thought it would be helpful to share the 100 most loved companies. The number 1 most loved company is the Walt Disney Company. Related to this idea is Fortune's list of the world's most admired companies. You can see the top 10 list globally. For the 13th year in a row, Apple claims the very top spot in this list. Fortune creates their list based on a survey of almost 3,800 executives, directors, and analysts. For delivery companies like UPS and FedEx, which one do you think topped this particular list? If you said FedEx, you would be right. On this list, FedEx ranks number 15. UPS ranks number 33. The text also covers the concept of dissonance. Dissonance is an important but sometimes confusing concept for students. It's really just a lack of harmony or conflict or some sort of tension. Generally, as a rule, dissonance does not occur for low or limited involvement purchases. It really happens mostly for high involvement purchases. In other words, something you're spending your money on that costs a lot of your time or a lot of your money. After some purchases are made, especially in high involvement conditions, some consumers experience doubts or anxiety about the wisdom of their purchase. This experience is known as post-purchase dissonance. It's most likely to happen, number 1, among people with a tendency to experience anxiety. Number 2, after a purchase that can't be revoked. Number 3, when a purchase was very important to the customer. And or number 4, when it involves a difficult choice between 2 or more alternatives. This topic of post-purchase dissonance is pretty important and is a function of 4 things. So let's cover each of these in more detail. Number 1 is the degree of commitment or irrevocability of the decision. In other words, there's no turning back. Number 2 is especially important and contingent on purchase and product involvement. Imagine buying a home, especially for the first time. This is a particularly important decision. Number 3, dissonance can happen when there's difficulty of choosing among alternatives. And number 4, dissonance can happen for those people who are especially sensitive or prone to experience anxiety. To decrease the likelihood of post-purchase dissonance, there are some strategies marketers can employ. The first is to increase the desirability of the brand purchased. The more exclusive the brand, the less likely dissonance is to occur. Similarly, a marketer can focus on decreasing the desirability of rejected alternatives. They can also decrease the importance of the purchase decision, or they can make the purchase decision seem less permanent. For example, returning the product before it's used. After a purchase is made, another outcome, consumption guilt, can occur. Consumption guilt occurs when guilt feelings are aroused by the product or service used. Marketers need to focus on validating the consumption for high guilt products. Think of these products as more expensive or luxury brands. I also see some student confusion when marketers consider why a consumer would expect below minimum performance. And there are several important reasons why this might be the case. The first is, available alternatives may not exist. The second reason includes an emergency situation. For example, when you get a flat tire and you have to go to the very first repair shop you see or have access to. And the third is a family decision. For example, you may decide to go to some restaurant to make your child happy, but the parents aren't happy in this case. While post-purchase dissatisfaction is highly undesirable by marketers, satisfaction is the goal. An important reason why marketers are so concerned with achieving at least satisfaction is because this sensation can be perceived as a reward by consumers. Satisfaction, then, is a form of operant conditioning. Remember these concepts covered in Chapter 9. Repeated feelings of satisfaction, or this level of operant conditioning, can reduce levels of decision-making for subsequent purchase decisions. So what factors lead to feelings of satisfaction or dissatisfaction? There are 3 primary determinants to focus on, and these include the instrumental performance, which relates to the physical functioning of the product. Second is the symbolic performance, and this relates to the aesthetic or image-enhancing performance. And lastly is the affective performance, and this is the emotional reaction or response that owning or using the product or outlet provides. What courses of action can a consumer take in response to feeling dissatisfied, and which actions are used most often? Marketers, as you can imagine, find this question to be particularly important and have studied it extensively. When dissatisfaction happens, a consumer can either take action or no action. When no action is taken, a less favorable attitude is the most likely outcome. However, when a customer decides to take action, marketers beware. Action can involve complaining to the store or the manufacturer. It can also include never buying that brand or that store again. Remember, a brand can become an inept consideration to the consumer. They can also engage in negative word of mouth, complain to private or government agencies, or even initiate legal action. Negative word of mouth is particularly damaging to a brand, and one of the most common or popular examples is the example shown on the screen. There's a Canadian musician named Dave Carroll who actually wrote a song when he took a trip using United Airlines. During the trip, United Airlines did not treat his guitar appropriately. When he picked the guitar up, it was broken. He wrote a song about it called United Breaks Guitars. This particular song went viral and was very damaging for the United brand. It became a PR disaster. The final learning objective in this chapter includes describing the relationship between satisfaction, repeat purchases, and customer commitment. For this reason, relationship marketing becomes key, and there are 5 important elements to consider. Remember the leaky bucket analogy I gave you in a previous lecture. There are 2 primary strategies to getting customers. The first strategy is to keep the customers you have. In other words, fix your leaky holes. The idea of keeping the customers you have creates an emphasis on relationship marketing. Alternatively, the second strategy is to get new customers. In other words, keep filling your leaky bucket with water. Just like this analogy, getting new customers as opposed to keeping your current ones is extremely costly and will always be more costly. As a result, I would always urge students to consider keeping your current customers and placing a greater emphasis on relationship marketing.